Kelly is Director of EST Innovation and will be discussing sustainability and with a unique and important perspective. Kelly's session is titled The Future of Real Estate Owners and Green Tech. Please join me in welcoming Kelly to the stage.
Hello. Hey, everybody. Oh, it's nice to see everybody here again at RETCON. My name is Kelly Soljacich, as she said, and I'm the Director of EST for LaSalle Investment Management. EST stands for Environmental, Social, and Technology. Today I'm going to talk about why institutional investors should get involved in green tech. I'm not sure if any of you have noticed, but proptech and sustainability went from being nice to have, you can do it if you can afford it kind of thing, to a must-have after the pandemic. So, and green tech or sustainability-related prop tech is a hot topic right now. So why should you, as an owner, get involved in the green tech space? I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. Let's see if I can do this. Hey. First of all, real estate's contribution to the climate crisis. That's a big one. Second, the current or eventual financial impact to your bottom line through cost savings or additional revenue production. And third, and finally, your company's image boost that you would get from sustainability projects and increased demand from your investors and residents in sustainability and tech at your properties. I'm going to dive into these a little bit deeper, but first I have a statistic that I want to see if you all are familiar with or not, because it blew my mind when I first heard it. Real estate accounts for 40% of global carbon emissions every year. 40%, like almost half. That is a big number. And that is something that we are all going to have to do something about in order to, work on the climate crisis. It's a tall order. So before we discuss real estate's effect on the climate crisis, I'm going to go through a little bit of history on a climate-related history and statistics to give a little background for those of you who aren't as familiar, or for those of you who don't believe in climate change, because it's here and it's happening. In fact, since 1970, climate-related disasters are up by 500%. 500. So floods, heat waves, wildfires, tornadoes, hurricanes, snowpocalypses, 500%. And this has cost our global economy over $3.6 trillion with a T. It is just a huge amount of money. Not to mention, it's cost the lives of over 2 million people, which is, even worse. In the US alone, in 2020, we spent $22 billion on climate-related disasters. And that number seemed incredible until the 2021 number came out, and it was $145 billion, the most expensive climate disaster year in history. I mean, it's just unbelievable the amount of money spent on this. It's not like we don't have anywhere else we could spend it, right? So, if you need more proof that this is happening, on Tuesday, in the UK, not sure if you guys heard, the hottest day in their history ever, on Tuesday. That was record-breaking. Not to mention on the news today, if you see over 100 million Americans are being told that to be careful, go inside, go to heat centers because there's an excessive heat wave going on in the US. So it's here and it's happening. And if we don't do anything about it, climate change will continue to increase the disasters and the frequency and the severity till the point where we're not going to be able to afford it anymore. So, what's the world doing about it? Well, in 2015, 196 participating member states and the EU got together in Paris to form the Paris Agreement, so named, at COP21. And this had leaders making 2025 to 2050 net zero commitments to limit climate change to less than 2 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels. And these promises and these legislations that they are going to be enacting is just the start if we're going to really do the work and limit climate change and begin to heal our atmosphere from the damage we've already done. So, what is one of the biggest drivers of global carbon emissions? Why are we all here today? Hey, it's real estate. All right, that brings me to point number 1. As I said before, real estate accounts for 40% of the global carbon emissions of 35 to 40 billion tons of carbon. And actually, if you look at just cities, it's actually 60%. So, I mean, real estate has a lot of work to do. And not only that, but global development is adding a city the size of New York every month. You know, emerging countries, developing areas, a city the size of New York every month on an ongoing basis, you know, and its associated carbon emissions every month. So, a lot of work to do. This is also why large real estate firms and firms from other industries are starting to make net zero commitments. You know, Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook, these are all companies that are, you know, getting on the train and trying to do something about it. So, how is real estate going to get there? Unfortunately, we can't do it with what's in place today. There's some work to be done. To begin with, to decarbonize a building, the biggest part is to get access to your data. And believe it or not, that is not easy. It is a big undertaking, and you know, you got to start now because it's going to take some time. It's really hard to say how far you've come if you don't know where you start, and you're going to have to prove the amount you've reduced in upcoming legislation. So get access to your data now. And then, for the low-hanging fruit, you need to make sure your people on the ground are operationally efficient. There's things happening that they need to make sure they're doing the right way. Easy things like, if there's nobody in the space, you know, turn the air conditioning down or turn the lights off. If the windows are open, turn the air conditioning off. Easy things like that. But it just needs to happen, or else all the systems in the world can't help you. Then you need to make sure your buildings are as energy efficient as possible. You know, that includes windows, insulation, flooring, appliances, your HVAC systems, chillers, boilers, you know, the list goes on. These are all you need to make sure you're using as least amount of energy as possible. And then you need to try to electrify whatever you can. Anything that's using fossil fuels, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for you to get to net zero. You're going to pay for those offsets, and it's going to cost you dearly. So electrify everything you can, and then once you get to that point, you're able to buy green energy or produce your own if you're able to put on on-site solar or other sort of on-site initiatives in order to come up with your own green energy, you know, in renewables. And then everything you cannot decarbonize, you're going to have to buy the offsets in order to make up that ground in order to get you to net zero. So your companies need to gather data, streamline your operations, and invest in a combination of updated systems and green energy procurement, and then offsets for anything you can't decarbonize. So this is where green tech comes into play. And it's going to help you. It's hardware, software that's going to help you along that road in all the different places. I'm going to get to that in the next section. So we're going to look at number 2 of my list, the impact to your company's bottom line. This is where we're going to show you how you can get additional other income or cost savings effect. And again, I'm going to give you a little bit of background in order to show you the idea of the magnitude and scale of what needs to happen here. The way the innovation in conventional prop tech has happened at properties previously was that luxury hotels kind of took on the guinea pig role and would take on the new, bright, shiny thing that everybody wanted to test. Right? It was like at the early stages. And then as it kind of gotten proven out and the winners became apparent, a lot of times student housing would pick it up because you had the student demand for the bright and shiny, right? And then a couple years later, multifamily would pick it up. And then sometimes office and industrial and retail would get some pieces. Office is getting a little more now, but you know, they definitely got the dregs of the lists. But prior to the pandemic, there were less than 1,200 prop tech companies. for owners to vet and analyze, which is not nothing, but doable. But during the pandemic, things ramped up, and now there are more than 10,000 proptech companies in place today and growing daily. This is daunting for owners. It is very difficult, again, why you can't do these things at the last minute. There are so many things to look at, new products coming online every day. This happened partly because during the pandemic, the IoT proptech allowed smart tech to do things we never knew we needed or wanted before, right? Self-guided tours, reserving amenity spaces, the smart access, thermostat, letting your dog walker in remotely so you don't have to talk to them, cleaner air, safer homes, the list goes on, right? Everybody all of a sudden is proptech crazy. Now, a lot of owners are going through VCs and not waiting for that life cycle of the products to come down through the line of the sectors. They're going with the VCs, starting it from almost the development phase, rolling it out portfolio-wide if it's something they believe in. Also, in some markets, with the onslaught of new developments, things are becoming market expected before it's even common. So you might have a property in a space that just had 10 buildings built around it, and all of them have smart home systems, and now you are forced to upgrade yours because now it's expected in that market. So now they're seen as must-haves instead of potentials. So, hold on a second. Oh well, my notes didn't progress. Thank you. So, why didn't all ownership jump on the prop tech or green tech bandwagon in the past? Because of the really large capital outlay they asked us to put forth, right? Without very for sure returns. No specific amount you were going to be able to charge or get back in cost savings. Many times it was just a hope and a dream, and a large capital outlay. So, in walks the subset of green tech. This chart shows the investment of green tech over time, starting in 2009 up till 2020. And right now, they're saying as of 2020, there was $16 billion of VC investment in green tech, but this is projected to go to $75 billion by 2030. So lots of new investments, so that 10,000 number is going to get much, much bigger in number of companies to be looking at. And green tech has been around for a while as well, just like prop tech, but again, had some of the same issues: large capital outlay, immaturity of the products, the lack of production kept costs high, the lack of decent internet connectivity in the buildings made them not quite efficient, or they would only work some of the time, and the lack of fees or costs associated from legislation and government encouraging people to make use of it sooner. Now, with managed Wi-Fi and high-speed internet at most A and B properties, IoT devices are able to efficiently function, especially with green tech, that is a big part, throughout the property much more smoothly and at costs that are lower now that production has ramped up. So here's some examples of green tech. The green tech you're mostly familiar with are probably rooftop solar and EV charging stations. And while these are definitely ones you should be evaluating to use at your properties, they're not by far not the only things you should be using at your properties. There's many more. Water. I lost my place. The water sensors, will tell you if you have a water leak. There's HVAC motors that are going to make your utility costs go down because they're much more energy efficient. Obviously, the Tesla battery storage you've heard about a lot lately in the media. You can actually store the energy you're producing on the rooftop solar and then either use it during high cost times when the energy is expensive, or even sell it back to the grid at a profit. There's occupancy sensors to tell you when your lights should be on and off, or utilities should go up or down. And then there's some newer stuff you might not know about, like smart glass with a solar film, where the solar glass will actually produce about 2/3 the energy of a rooftop solar panel, but then it will shade itself during sunny times to keep you from having to turn your AC up in the actual space. And I'm assuming that will only continue to get more efficient and affordable. There's energy generating pavement that all you have to do is lay it out and people walk on it and you're producing energy for your property. I mean, the list goes on. There's so much new, and I think I'm over time, so I'm going to keep going. So those were the carrots. That was helping you produce more revenue or cost-saving initiatives on the last slide. This is the stick. So instead of enticing you, these are ways that the different governments are going to penalize you if you don't reduce your carbon footprint. So in New York already, here in New York, Local Law 97 already is in place, and as of 2024 is going to charge you $268 per carbon ton over your allowable levels going forward, and that's going to ramp up. That cost is going to keep increasing. DC and Boston already have carbon tax fees in place and the penalties. Canada has put through their carbon tax, I believe it's $50 per carbon ton of emission. And many, many states and local jurisdictions, I think it was like over 30 of each, are putting forth new benchmarking and fees and regulations as well. And if you're thinking that your 2050 net zero carbon goals are kind of like far off and you got time and new buildings are going to be more energy efficient, don't worry about it. We don't have to do anything with our current buildings. Guess again. Because 80% of the buildings in place in 2050 that are going to be part of our net zero carbon goals are already in place today. So we have a lot of work to do there. Let's see. Oh yeah, so with buildings the way they currently stand, the projections is that $1 trillion worth of assets are going to be stranded. That means the value of the property will be less than what it costs to operate the property with new regulation penalties. $1 trillion. So if that's not affecting your bottom line, I don't know what is. Uh-oh. Okay, that brings me to my third and final point. The reputational booster that your company will get through sustainability efforts and the additional tenant and investor demand that will come from doing sustainability projects and tech. It's a bit easier for us to measure multifamily demand because of companies like NMHC, the National Multi-Housing Council. They do these resident surveys every year, and they actually get actual feedback of who wants what and how much they will pay for it, right? They had over 220,000 responses in this year's report, and they said that 75% of residents want energy efficient and green initiatives, enhanced indoor air quality, smart thermostats, leak sensors, water saving fixtures, on and on and on, right? Renewable energy, on-site renewable energy. They're asking for this. I'm not sure I knew what that was 5 years ago. So, and then on top of that, it says how much they're going to pay for it. It's between $28 and $38 more in rent a month for these items. We already know they're going to pay for it. That's on average. So, your Class A property is probably more than that. So there's no longer a question mark there of whether people will pay for it. So not only are you going to get your other income from like the solar, selling your extra solar power and such, and your energy saving things, but now you're going to make additional rent too. That's like a nice co-benefit, right? All right. And then the commercial tenants, for people who have commercial buildings, there's been a 5 times increase in commercial tenants with carbon targets and sustainable initiatives, right? You can see there over the last 5 years, it's grown by 5%. And that number is supposed to be that they're projecting that by 2025, 80% of large corporate tenants are going to have these net zero carbon targets again. So be prepared, because your tenants are going to start coming and asking you how to make their space more energy efficient. Then for many European investors and an increasing number of US investors, they will only invest in your fund if you have a GRESB score of 3 or more. And if you don't know what GRESB is, it's the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmarking Certificate, right? And so they're measuring your data aggregation, your sustainability programs, your ESG programs, your social programs, how close you are to net zero, if you buy green energy, that kind of thing. And a lot of these funds, they won't invest with you unless you're at a certain point. So you're going to lose investors if you're not paying attention to this. Investors are also asking for your data on it 5 times more than they used to. So be prepared to tell them about what your programs you're doing and, brag on yourself. Okay, why act now? Why don't we just wait like we all did in the past? We wait to put on this tech, until it's proven out and Amazon buys it. So aside from the new cost savings and additional revenue that's possible, the difference between today and before is the world doesn't have time to wait, right? We don't have time to go through the normal life cycle. We need to be part of this test phase feedback loop, to development in order to get the scale that we need and the amount of time that we need in order to keep it going. In order for our commercial properties to do their part to decarbonize real estate, we all need to be part of that feedback loop. For example, there's more solar energy hitting the earth every day than every company, man, woman, and child and business can use, all the time. We just don't have the tech to save and utilize it. But, again, the more testing and demand that we show of what we want and how we want it, this is how we're going to innovate. In order for the world to hit their net zero carbon goals by 2050, with no sure way of real estate getting there, we need to tweak and perfect it. All of us in institutional ownership positions, we have the knowledge base in order to help them do this, and it's going to take all of us being part of it in order to get this done. So, I've given you 3 reasons to be part of this movement. You can be part of reducing real estate's impact on climate crisis. You can do well by doing good, right? Improve your company's image and increase demand by your investors and commercial tenants by rolling out these programs. And number 3, improve your company's image. Oh, sorry, I did that wrong. Number 2, increase your bottom line through increasing your revenue and decreasing your expense with a little homework and testing. And then number 3, improve your company's image, right, through rolling out these programs and increase demand from investors and tenants. So, thank you very much for your time today, and I hope I've raised some good ideas for you guys, and have a great time, okay?
Thank you so much, Kelly. And I gotta say, I love how committed you are to the green initiatives. I mean, even your shirt's green. It's amazing.